Hear me?
Yeah, Boo, we can hear you.
All right, good deal. I'm more of a verbal guy. I'm gonna have trouble going back and forth from this chat, but anyhow, I just wanted to take a quick moment, right quick, and say that most of y'all that know me know that this will probably be one of my most difficult parts is moving this contest to an online deal. As most of y'all know, this this subject doesn't lend itself, as most contests, really well to being online, especially because everything we're going to have to do is going to look like it's going to be in a two-dimensional setting. We're going to do the best we can. During this time that we have, I want y'all to be interactive. This is y'all are going to help me as much as I'm going to help y'all. We will go over the expectations of what we're going to try to do, and we'll take it from there. So please ask questions, give input, give suggestions, whatever we got. All right. This is going to take me a second. I'm trying to get to it. Hang on. Y'all can see everything.
Yes.
All right, guys, look at there. See? Good example of how I'm going to do this. So the contest is going to be on the 24th, 1 to 4 p.m. is what I'm being told. And so right now, the way I'm anticipating the contest to go is that we're going to have a format of probably a PowerPoint slideshow type presentation where we'll have the ID will be numbered, each cut will be numbered, and we'll try to give two different views for the cuts, a top view, and then a lateral type view or a side view where we can see all the cut surfaces and bone and muscle fat structures. One of the things I've been struggling with is determining what's a steak and what's a roast, because as you know, we have some differences there, size. And so I'm trying to come up with a type of grid that I'll have these on that will give some sense of the size of the product. Does that make sense to people out there? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that makes it.
All right. So for the reasons portion, and this is where I'm going to need help with the team's folks, Robert and them. I'm being told that we'll be able to have individual type interviews with the contestants, and they can give a verbal set of reasons to me, and I'll write their scorecards down, and then we'll go into the system and put their scores in for them. So as of now, that's how the format is looking. Unless somebody tells me that this is going to be a bandwidth issue, which I'm assuming it will be, because we're going to have multiple pictures, possibly short video clips for classes. This stuff I don't understand, so I'm going to rely on Robert to tell me what we're going to be able to do. The card will be the same score sheet that we've used in the past. We will use the same score sheet that we've used in the past, except for it's digital. And I have I'll go to it in a second and show y'all how that's going to work. How many of y'all have seen the new score sheet? Has anybody seen it yet?
This is Hannah. I have not seen the new digital score sheet.
Okay,
Do you have a link for that?
Yeah, we're about to open it up right here. Y'all can see my screen, right?
Anna, I'm gonna type the link into the chat.
Well, it's on this. Y'all can see my screen, correct?
Yeah, but we can't click on it if they want to click on it.
All right, I got you. Well, I'm about to open it up for you. So, but the way it's going to work is they'll go through the digital scorecard, and we'll just open it up right quick. Okay, this is what you're going to have. This is actually a link on judging card. Crystal, we can share this with the agents, and they can use this in practice. They can't turn it in or submit it, all right, at all, because it's a demo only, but the students can get used to using it. But it's just the same scorecard as last time. We'll have to assign everybody a team number, and they can just click on, whatever their number is. If you made the wrong mark, you click that spot again, it goes away. So you'll be able to fill in all your name. When you come to placing a class.
Hey, Boo, 1 second. Do you have that up on your screen right now?
I do. Is it not showing?
Okay. No, it's not showing it for us, but everybody, I put the link in the chat. You can click on it and it'll open up a screen and you can follow along.
All right. Is Robert still on this call? Why is this not showing up my screen?
Well, I'm your tech person, but it's probably because of the way you're sharing your screen. You have it open in another page and you're only sharing your PowerPoint, not your full desktop.
Right, so how do I go back to this desktop? How do I go back to that?
If you want to share the desktop, you'll have to go back to that toolbar, 3 buttons across, click share.
Hang on, say that again now. Y'all got to talk in baby steps for me.
Go to that pop-up toolbar, 3 buttons across. You don't have to get out of your PowerPoint unless you want to. Well, actually, you might have it. So actually go back to that. Go back to and just minimize your PowerPoint. Let me see what you're doing.
All right.
Did you minimize it?
Yeah, I minimized it.
Okay, so you're not sharing your desktop. So just move your mouse on the team screen. Go to the square with the arrow pointing up. It should say share. And then the first option on the far left should say desktop. Just share your desktop, and then whatever page you have open will show to us.
Slow down 1 second. The square with the arrow up. I have in the middle of the toolbar, I got a square with an X. It says stop sharing.
Yeah, you're going to want to stop sharing first.
All right.
And then click it again to share. And then this time just share your general desktop.
Gotcha. Good. All right. See, we're all learning together here. At least I'm going to learn. All right. So y'all can laugh if y'all want now. I'm thick-skinned. How about it?
Now, yep, now we see everything.
Good deal. All right. So back to what I was saying. You have the ability to pick, fill this form out however you need. If you make an errant mark, you just click it again. It goes away. We'll be able to fill out our name. We go to place in a class. Say we placed it this and we were supposed to place something else. You can change your answers. I think this card is actually going to help the contestants because in the past, when they have to change their answers and they don't erase completely, they get a 0, where this is going to change that scenario for us greatly. While we're looking at the card, I want to just go through it right quick with those of you that are kind of new to this. Obviously, this part is where we'll fill out our name, our team number, and this identifies this individual. The placing classes, which will have 4 placing classes, are going to be in this area. All right, a placing class is always going to be 4 exhibits, labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you would just pick your placing, whatever it is, mark it in these sheets. Okay. if you look at the rest of the screen, there's a lot of things on here. This form is made for 4-H and FFA. So there's a lot of portions in here we're not going to use. We will not use meat formulation. We will not use keep cull. We will not use a written exam portion. We will use questions because I like to ask a class of questions. I think it helps to identify the individuals that saw the class well and maybe just had slightly different opinions than the judge. And so instead of them just losing the points in a pair or tight pair or something like that, they have an opportunity to show their abilities a little bit better by answering questions.
Hey, Boo, this is Hilton.
Hey, Hilton.
How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm great.
Good. Quick question for you. On this scorecard, on those portions that we're not going to use, is there any way to, like, put an X over them or?
No, it's a digital form. The only thing, anything you try to do, it's going to make a mark somewhere on it. So as long as if they mark something on it and it runs through the contest, it won't count off. The only thing that would count off is when I put my official form in, the computer's looking for that dot in that place. And it knows that if a dot's in another place, how to score it. But if there's a dot over here, and this was the same thing with the old form, the paper form. If somebody wrote accidentally in one of the other areas, it didn't count against them.
Okay. All right.
And we don't have to worry about them folding this one up. We don't have to worry about them getting it wet, any of that motion.
Yeah.
So,
I was just thinking if they marked it in the wrong spot and then didn't mark it in the other, but
that's a perfectly valid question. It does happen, and it doesn't count against them. And when we go back to paper, because we are going to go back to paper at one point, we're going to go back to doing this live, I can assure y'all, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So the only other thing that will be used, actually, your students won't use any other portion. The reasons portion right here, I will just actually enter their reason score directly into the program. So it won't have to be entered into this form. And I'll ask Russell at judging card if for some reason it will give them that, if it'll show up on their form and if I can print their raw forms. I don't know if we can, because I like to, we used to use that as a backup to make sure the program is scoring correctly, which we're just going to have some faith. Move down to the next sheet, meat identification. It's identical to the forms that you'll have right now or have copies of to work with. You got your species, your primal, your retail cut first digit, your retail cut second digit, and then your cookery. You have the guide, the cut guide right next to it, just like on the old form. So it's not going to be very different other than it's going to be in a format that's digital, which I think for the students is going to be a benefit because they're used to that more than I am for sure, as y'all can tell. Any questions on the form? At the end, one of y'all should ask this question. Well, what do we do? So once we get done with filling out the form, the students are done with the contest, they'll hit this submit button. Now, I brought up the question, what happens if they accidentally hit submit, but they wanted to check something? They can submit another form if need be. They can, I don't know if they can reclaim it or just submit a new form if they have to. I think they can still see it. In other words, once you submit it, you can still see your form. You can change it. And I'm going to get a clarification on that. I don't know a need for that.
So, Boo, I have a question. How long will the contest be open?
Well, I'm calculating that out right now. What I'm thinking is I'll add up the time that it normally takes for this contest, but I'm going to add some time to that, to a little bit of time to it, not a whole bunch, because the students never used it all the time. right?
Okay. Yeah.
But the way it's going to work is they're going to have two screens open. They're going to have a PowerPoint screen open, answer the question on this screen. All right, so it's not one screen together. So they're going to have to split screen their screen, read the question or look at the class, determine their answer, and then go in and place it. Now, I would suggest that they get a piece of paper or a book or something, you know, tablet, and go through the contest, or even another Scantron. You know, give them a digital Scantron, which I can give y'all copies of that y'all can print, and maybe mark their Scantron out.
Is there any way to print this form out?
I'm going to send a printed form out. I'll get that to Crystal, and Crystal can get that to y'all.
Because they could even use that and then go back.
I think it's on the resources that we've sent out in the past. The form is on.
Okay, and that was my next question. Is this form up in the study guide material? Because some of the stuff is and some of it isn't. I didn't look for this one yet.
That form should be, and then of course, if they share this file, I'll take this PowerPoint also and send it to Crystal. You can get it out to everybody. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'll make sure it gets out to everybody.
So I'll give her the live PowerPoint, and then you'll have these links if they want to practice doing it digitally.
Yeah.
Have this. Just don't try to submit it. I don't think it's going to do anything, but so they can work with these forms as well.
Okay.
And get familiar with how they work. And I mean, this is going to be second nature to them. It's just people like me again. So I think that's pretty much it on the form. Now all I got to do is figure out how to get back to my PowerPoint presentation. And that was easy. Okay, so and obviously do your own work. Do your own work. That's going to be up to y'all. I'm not going to fret on, you know, how they're getting the information, what they're doing. I have to make an open contest. The contest will be somewhere around 2 hours, 2.5 hours long, if I remember right, for that many classes, and they'll have that much time to do what they need to do, unless we can figure out another way of going and then, you know, opening up the ID first, and then the IDs closed, and then opening up this class. I ain't smart enough to do that. So that would be something that Crystal and I could work on. But I think just an open time slot is going to work. And they're just going to have to use the honor system. The events, for those that are new to this event, I have another link that's posted here. Y'all all seen this. It's in the this right here just gives you a basis to the rules. Obviously, it's not updated. I don't control that, but so you can go into the meet judging rules right here. It'll tell you the basis for the classes, which I've reiterated in a PowerPoint presentation. You click on that, tells you what to expect. This is the national rules, which we follow identically. Okay, it'll tell you what the classes can be made of. We're going to go through that as well. And then it also has the retail cuts that are available. This is the only retail cuts that they need to know for the contest. Okay, this is the only thing that we can test on. We can't test on anything else. Being from Louisiana, we have some pretty unique names for some cuts, and they're not going to count. So this is the master list that I make my retail identification cuts from right here. Okay. Then if you go through, there's some other resources that you can use for training. Y'all all have probably just as good a resources at your fingertips that you've used in the past. The retail meat identification portion will be 30 cuts that are 10 points per cut. So, this is the one that's important. This is what wins contests. 300 points right off the bat. You get 2 points per species, 3 points for a primal cut, 4 points for a retail cut, and 1 point for cookery. I can tell you that it comes down to this at the national level, and it's pretty impressive. The placing classes will be 50 points per class. It's going to consist of 4 exhibits, and the carcass classes can only be beef or pork. So I'm anticipating right now that we're going to have a placing class for beef, a placing class for pork. Carcass wise, I'm going to do my best to get the pictures as similar as possible, because I know that how far you're standing from a carcass makes a difference in what it looks like. I'm going to try to use things that will help in knowing the size and structure of the carcasses in the pictures. I'm going to have some kind of indicators in there. Wholesale, primal, or subprimal cuts may or may not be. So hams, loins, beef loins, beef ribs. There's a list of cuts that we can use. We're going to try to do at least 1 class of those and at least 1 class of retail cuts. And all the possible classes are listed in the rules. So that's the ones that you really want to concentrate on when it comes to placing classes. We will have a questions class and a reasons class on these 2 of these classes. So one class will be reasons, 1 class will be questions, and I don't know which it is yet. I generally like to do reasons on something that's going to have a lot of variation, so like either beef carcasses or retail cut, and then we normally ask questions on some of the pork cuts. Each class is different, it just depends. Questions on any of those?
Boo, this is Hannah. I have a question. You're cutting all of these cuts and processing the carcasses, as in not utilizing like pre-used pictures, like pre-made pictures?
I am processing some of the cuts. We've just been allowed back in office last week, excuse me.
Okay.
And so I have harvested a lamb already. We're making cuts and pictures tomorrow for our retail ID on lamb cuts. And I'm working with some individuals to get pictures, but it's not necessarily going to be pictures for, some of them pictures will be from the internet, some of them won't. Some will be that I'm making. Our hands are kind of tied. I have the ability to go to different places and take some of these pictures, but they don't want us traveling. I'm trying to figure out how to do some of this stuff, but it's not going to be pictures that a lot of people have had access to. In other words, I'm getting some brought in, and I have students that work in meat plants that are taking pictures for me. They've got permission to do some carcass stuff, and so it's going to be new. It's not going to be things that they've seen before, more than likely. Is that the question that you're kind of asking? Is that what you kind of alluding to? Am I just going to grab pictures off the training ones that we all use?
Correct.
Maybe so, maybe not. It depends on what happens. That's next week. So if we focus on, and we're going to get into that, and you've trained them. If you focus on structure, bone structure, muscle structure, the picture shouldn't really matter, with the exception of not knowing the full size and depth of it. I hate trying to judge things like this with pictures, because you don't see all the dimensions that you need to see. We talked about these 2 things, questions based on placing classes previously placed. And same thing with oral reasons. The oral reasons thing's gonna be a little tricky, guys. I don't know. How do y'all plan on doing this? Are you gonna have all your students do this from home? Or are they gonna be in one area, social distance, to where y'all can kind of monitor them? How are y'all planning on doing that side of it? I guess is a question for me. And anybody can answer this one.
This Hilton, we're hoping that they can be here at the office and do it, just because of the issues that we might have with some bandwidth and internet problems. I
Right.
feel like this is probably the best place for them to do them, and especially if they're going to need a split screen. You know, a lot of the kids, you know, their computers at home are kind of limited.
I agree.
So you know, that's what we would like to have happen if we can, you know, have students here by this time. So.
Okay.
I mean, the ones that have the ability and can do it, if they want to do it from home, we'll probably let, you know, they can do that. But I think that's why I was kind of asking how long it would be open. So if we did need to kind of rotate them through, you know, where they maybe weren't here at the same time, or they were, you know, we can, you know, spread them, you know, obviously spread them out in the office. But anyway.
Well, I think that's something that we can work on together as a group. As y'all find out the abilities of the individuals, and or if y'all are going to be able to put them together in areas, if you're going to be if y'all have a judging pavilion that has wireless or something like that, where we can get together, you know, and y'all can kind of monitor and make sure they're not having problems. Then if we need to space them out and add time, I might can do that. Maybe we can say, you know, A through M's start the contest at this time, and the rest go at this time to reduce the bandwidth.
I've got two brothers that are on our team. So if they're doing it from home, they're already going to have a conflict.
I got you.
They have one computer.
I got you. And I need input, guys. This is new to everybody, but this is real new to me. Crystal can attest to that, because I've been probably whining a little bit, like, I don't know nothing about this. I'm used to being in the cutting room. But I get that. I watched my two sons try to finish their finals, and we have great bandwidth, and it was a problem. So
well, and just keep in mind, we know there are going to be certain situations with like multiple, like Hilton, you have brothers and they only have one computer. We understand that there's going to be complications like that, and there may be situations where we have to work with those things. But in general, we're going to try to make things happen within the 4-hour time frame that is given, and hopefully that's enough.
Let me ask everybody a question while I have y'all online, and I'll need some input, because this popped into my head. What do y'all feel about the possibility of doing written reasons for the class instead of oral reasons? And that is going to eliminate a tremendous bandwidth issue with this contest. That's how it's done in the collegiate meets world. There's no oral reasons. It's written reasons. And they basically just write their reasons out. And then I guess they could email the reasons to me.
No, if we do written reasons, there'll be a way to submit them within the classroom. It would be a very simple process for submitting reasons written in that format, if you want to go that way.
Into Teams, or
yes, we can just make it an assignment within Teams, and all they have to do is upload their Word document.
They just upload the Word document to me, and I would be able to give them
yes, all of that would be done on the backside. For the students, it would be extremely easy to do. It would be significantly easier to do written reasons than oral, but that is all on you as a superintendent determining what's best.
I have no trouble. I say I have no problem grading written reasons right how do y'all feel about it? Y'all have to train them. This is our contest. This isn't Boo's contest. This is this entire group's contest. And I know that bandwidth is going to be an issue, especially when we start trying to do oral reasons.
If you do the written reasons, I mean, for them to submit written reasons or oral reasons, we're going to have to teach them and train them how those reasons need to be presented anyway, for them to have the terminology in and the organization. But if you do the written reasons, you don't have to go back and schedule the appointments for them to, you know, that's going to be another thing where you're going to have to schedule that, where Hilton's turn is at whatever time you make it, and then Hannah's going to be at the next 15 minutes, you know. That might get to be a tough bear to wrestle as you're trying to set all that up.
Yeah, I mean, y'all saw I can't figure out how to go from there. Show y'all my screen. Y'all think I'm gonna have trouble with some team interviews?
Yeah.
Well, regardless of that, we can make sure that's taken care of very easily on the backside. I'll make sure Boo is organized on that. I mean, I would say probably one of the benefits to written over oral is that you have control of the presentation of your 4-Hers reasons. You know, if there's a technical difficulty, if there's a glitch, if there's a connection issue and things get fuzzy, or we miss a section or something, you know, you can only control so much of a delivery across a technology-based format. Right. And by a written format, you are controlling every bit of what you deliver. And so there is that benefit to a written over technology.
What I don't want to happen is that we have a kid giving a jam up set of reasons just on a roll, and it glitches out, and then I come back 3-4 seconds later and say, look, you need to start over. Because that's just going to wreck their delivery.
Hey,
Boo, I really think this is on you.
Oh, what's that?
No, Hannah, go ahead.
I understand the need to have a backup of. I think that written reasons will get the same point across. They're going to be learning the same things with a little bit less emphasis on public speaking, which I do appreciate, but I also understand these are trying times. My biggest concern though would be what's going to stop that kid from opening up their notebook and copying a set of pre-written reasons and typing those in and turning them in, if we can't have them in the office, which as of right now, we can't have kids in our office.
Well,
it'll be the same challenge with all contests. There's no difference in wildlife. If they're sitting there taking a quiz and they have their book open with the pictures, it's going to be a challenge this year. Cheating across the board is going to be a challenge.
Yeah, and believe it or not, you know, if the class is set up correctly, that they're given the reasons on, you can tell right away if it's a canned set of reasons. You know, if they can write the most beautiful set of reasons, you know, written, but if it doesn't match the class, we know it's canned within the first pair. And we. Go ahead.
Boo and Crystal. This is Stan. Good morning. How are y'all?
We're great. How are you?
All right. I hadn't had much contact with y'all. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're not sure we're going to do livestock or meat judging. We're working on both. But anyway, one of my biggest concerns with any judging contest, and specifically this one because it's going to be virtual, is like the actual preparation for the national contest. In other words, to me, the state contest has always been a really, really good practice for the national, because it's just a smaller version of what they do when they get to the national contest, even though I know there's some limitations within the meat lab. And so now with virtual, I'm even more concerned about, you know, where do you go from the state contest? You're basically talking about whichever team wins. If they have not had experience before in previous years, then they could actually go to a national contest having never competed in a live contest before. So correct. To me, everything that we do to as closely assimilate to the live contest as possible would be the way to go. And I understand about how written would be a whole lot easier to judge, but still,
Oh, it's not going to be easy to judge. It's going to be a lot harder to judge. It's going to be easier to make the communication.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. It's easier to submit.
And I agree, and I appreciate what you're saying there, and because of these crazy times. And what I can say is that there's nothing saying that y'all can't take them written reasons and make them give them to you verbally and practice with them. We judge livestock at the college level. I can't tell you how many classes we would talk reasons. We'd have 1 week, we're just talking reasons. Take your notes out from 2 contests ago, work your reasons up again and give them, and from your notes. And I don't know. I'm just trying to make a fair scenario for the students, because I can just see what's probably going to end up happening when we have all these contests going on at one time, is we're going to have communication disruptions, and this is where it's going to happen.
I will also say that there's a huge benefit to, Mr. Stan, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
If we can create the most normal of a contest possible, that's best for preparation for the national contest. But every state is also in this same situation. I can guarantee you every state is dealing with these exact same things. And there's a lot to be learned in just being able to create and build a set of reasons, even from a written format. Y'all know better than anyone that the only way reasons gets better is practice, practice, practice. So this one contest, while it would have prepared them in like being on the spot and nerves and things along those lines, unfortunately, this is just it's a 1 year that everybody's kind of on the same playing field. Like there's going to be a lot of teams showing up to that national contest that were in the same playing field with a virtual contest and different things like that. So it is Boo's decision in the end as to how we decide to do these reasons. So.
Hey, Boo's Hilton again. Maybe what if we wait and see how many students you have, how many contestants you have?
Well, that's still one of the things, but I have y'all's ear right now. I want to get everybody's input on this. I don't want to just make a decision and say, here, y'all got to deal with it. I want this to be cohesive for everybody. And since y'all are the ones training, and I agree, if we could make this contest just like it's going to be, but I don't think written reasons versus oral reasons is going to be as big a hiccup as looking at a 2-dimensional picture versus the carcass.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, if you wait to see how many kids you have, if you want to try to do the oral reasons, if you have a more manageable number, then maybe that's worth some of the hiccups that you might have. But if you have a large number, then maybe just you go with the written reasons. I'm just trying to give you a little bit more time to kind of think about that and make that decision. And
yeah, it's not set. I got you. That makes sense. Do we know when is the deadline? When do y'all have to decide what contest you're going to? Friday?
June 3rd.
Wow. Yeah.
Boo, David Bolt.
David, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. I have no stake in the game, but this might be 1 year where you want to pick something with less things to say about it. I know you like doing the opposite, but pick an easy cut that you don't have to talk a whole lot about.
Oh, yeah.
To say.
What you mean I like to do the opposite?
You like to pick the hardest thing and have the most, like you said, variations. I know how you do it. Don't argue with me.
Yeah.
Pick something easy to talk about.
I need to know who's going to see it. More than likely, it'll be retail cuts because that's the simplest. That's what I've had the last couple of years. It just depends on what classes I can put together. This is as new to me as it is to y'all. But I agree. All right. To be continued on that. The next thing I kind of had set up, and y'all can tell me if you need or don't need, or if you just need the PowerPoint presentation, is just kind of how to go about making some of these decisions. Y'all have all seen this presentation, or some of y'all have seen this presentation. I don't know how many students we have online with us right now, if any. But I just thought I would kind of throw this out there again and what goes into making the decisions during the contest. Is that something y'all feel like we need to go through right now? Anyone? Hello.
Hey, you have something in the chat. I would like you to send that to me if possible.
Right. I'm going to send this whole PowerPoint presentation out to Crystal to send to everyone. And it has a lot of this information on there. I'll gladly go through it. I don't know if y'all have other things y'all need to do. If y'all want to go through that, I will talk a little bit about how to play some of this.
Real quick, I went ahead and put a poll in the chat just to get a good estimate of who would prefer written, oral, or no preference on the reasons, just so Boo has like a solid kind of viewpoint if you want to do that.
Okay, sounds good. Please. All right, so I'll run through this with y'all then right quick. When it comes to determining species, obviously size is going to be one of the bigger indicators of what species a retail cut comes from. The very larger species obviously are going to be beef. The type and color of the cut will help you determine what species it is, and then also the texture of the muscle. Beef and lamb can look fairly similar when it comes to color, but lamb normally has a lot finer textured cut, and of course is a lot smaller. Pork obviously is going to be a little bit medium, more grayish pink. So this is something that y'all can go through with your students to kind of help in making some of these decisions. Lamb, smaller, more cherry red, dark, a little finer texture like I stated before. One of the things I think that's key to identifying the primal cuts is knowing the bone structure, all right, and the amount and shape of muscles that's in there. So I've put on this presentation, you have a copy of the skeletal chart with the wholesale cuts marked in them, okay? That should give you a good indication of what faces you'll be looking at when you're looking at a cut and what bone structure should be there. I have them for beef, pork, and lamb. And it's, you know, the skeleton is a road map, guys. The skeleton is a road map. That bone structure should tell you where it's coming from. Where it's coming from. Muscle size and shape is obviously very important. If you have very large muscles, generally they're going to come from the round, depending on the species. And then if you have numerous muscles with a lot of different fat lines or intramuscular fat between them, seam fat, that's generally going to come from the front. The front of the animal kind of steers, so they have a lot of smaller stabilizer groups of muscles. The rear of the animal kind of powers the animal around. Those muscles will be larger in size and shape.
Hey, Boo, I have a quick question for you. Just looking at some of these retail cuts. Will you put maybe two cuts in the picture? Like I saw you had those two eye rounds.
Certain cuts will be there's certain traditionally that two were shown at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And normally what I like to do is I'll use two cuts if they're the same cut of meat that are just a little different looking, you know, because this is biology, right? So nothing's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So certain ones will be that way. But I'm gonna try not to show you just this view. All right, looking at this view right here on this bottom round, I just lost my mouse. This bottom round cut, okay? I mean, is that a steak or is that a roast?
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
It's a steak, all right. I'll tell you that. But it could be a roast at the right angle. You couldn't tell the depth right behind this black background. So that's why I was saying I was thinking about using some kind of grid to lay them on for the students to get an idea of the size and shape. I'm working with that tomorrow. I mean, I got a student worker who's been putting together stuff all day, yesterday and today, and we're going to take some random pictures and see what looks right and what's going to help them determine dimension.
Too, Boo, if you'd want to take a few pictures and send them out to some of us to look at, give you just another set of eyes on them.
I may try to do that. The problem is that I don't want to limit my pool too much because I'm having a few pictures. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Well, just to help you with how they're laid out and how they look.
And you know, guys, I'm not opposed. If y'all have a lot of unique pictures, share them. You know, I know that I might can use them. I might not be able to use them. I'm going to try to use all original pictures, but that's a tougher deal than is to be said. All right. So the fat amount, when you see lots of marbling in a product, more in a beef product, obviously it could be a pork product as well and a lamb product. Most time, a lot of marbling is going to be in a beef product. It's coming from a cut that's mid-body and forward. Animals put on fat front to back, top to bottom, and you know, they don't have a terrible amount of marbling in the round cuts. So, you know, tell your students, if you see something heavily marbled, obviously it's either coming from the rib, possibly the loin, or coming off the front. The types of fat that are there will help determine the area of the cut. Okay, the area of the cut. And in bone shape and size, which we kind of reiterated, will be another thing that's going to be a telltale sign. Blade bones definitely coming off the front. You know, ribs are going to be coming out of the middle cuts, the belly, the side. Retail cuts, you know, your options are going to be chops, steaks, roast. I'll concentrate on those. Obviously, you have variety meats, various and cured cuts. Those all have pretty self-identifying type scenarios. The variety meats, the organ meats are going to be different per species to a certain amount. Various is going to be stews and ground meat and things like that. I generally don't use a bunch of that. Cured cuts we may can use this year. They tend to show up pretty well. Most cured cuts are going to be pork or maybe some pickled beef products. Chops, you know, here's the proportions that we follow. Okay, now this is the stuff that's going to be a little difficult for them to tell because, you know, they're not going to be able to tell, well, is that an inch? Is that an inch and a half thick? I mean, it's a picture. They're going to have a little difficult time to do that. I've even struggled with trying to determine how to set the contest up to where they can tell a little bit better that it's a steak or a chop rather a roast. Yeah.
Stan, one thing we've done in training before is when we're taking pictures at a contest is you need to put something for reference. You know, a coin or a pencil or something where they can actually look at that and to try to help determine what the size is of the cut.
Right.
You can put that. I mean, maybe that's not something that we want to do, but it's always helped us in terms of when you're comparing it to the size of something, because that's the problem when you're looking at slides or pictures. You can't size becomes very difficult to, and thickness, all that stuff becomes difficult to tell.
Right, and that's one of the things I'm definitely going to attempt to do. So I was talking about this grid that I'm working on. That is basically just, kind of a mat that they'll sit on. That's an inch grid that shows the size of it. That way, you should be able to get an indication. I don't know. I'm starting to take pictures tomorrow, and I even thought something as simple as something that they know in the picture next to them. A dollar bill, coin, well, not a dollar, it's illegal, whatever. But anyhow, we're going to do something other than just a cut against a black background, because I don't think that's going to be the easiest way. And this is really only going to be on certain cuts, arm steak versus arm roast. There's certain ones. And I might can just avoid those types of cuts altogether. Being that we're using pictures, it's I don't have to worry about the next morning when I put this contest on. So we make 60 cuts normally, somewhere around 60 cuts to try to get 30 good cuts to stay overnight, the right color, not fall apart, not leak too much moisture, all these different things to put the contest up in the morning. And that's not going to be a problem. Once I take that picture, that it's there, it ain't changing. So we'll see how it works out. I tend to overthink things and borrow trouble sometimes. But that's a good point. I will try to use something. This is the parameters that they should fit into, though. Any roasts that we use in this contest are definitely going to be way bigger than 2 inches. It's not going to be something that's borderline where they have to scratch their head. I know I've done that on accident a few times. Some of y'all think on purpose, but on accident a few times, mostly because of the way that the bone and the muscle structure runs out. I'm trying to make cuts with limited amounts. Them I have to get close to that 1.5 inch thick. I try not to do that. That won't happen in this contest, I don't think. You can go through this is strictly learning. Y'all know how to make them understand this stuff. What I want to get into right quick, even though we do not quality grade and yield grade, how do we place beef cuts and carcasses based on quality grade and yield grade? So for those that aren't familiar with beef grading, beef quality grade, right now is a good time to hear some of this, because I'm sure y'all are all getting phone calls because everybody and their brother is buying a calf from somebody to put in the freezer, and they're getting their calf back. They bought a 1,000-pound steer and they got 400 pounds of meat, and it ain't pretty. They want to know what went wrong. So, this stuff is going to be important to understand. Quality grade represents the estimated acceptability or palatability of that carcass. Prime, choice, select, standard. It's how we start the placing of classes. Everything, how we start the pricing of carcasses. Everything is based on quality grade. We adjust on yield grade, which is an estimate of how much of that product. So quality grade will tell us the eating expectation of that carcass, and yield grade, how much of that carcass will we be able to maintain, okay? One yield grade being the leanest, heaviest muscled carcass that puts the most amount of usable product on the table. 5 being the fattest, poorest muscle, least efficient carcass. On average, cattle fall somewhere around 3, fat cattle, 1,300 pound cattle, fall somewhere around 3, yield grade 3, 3.5, and that's all based off of a few parameters we'll talk about right fast, so that your students will kind of get an understanding of how to place these cuts. This is why quality grade is so important. This is a study that actually was done here, and this just shows the relationship of palatability on a consumer taste panel with quality grade, and we can all see pretty easy, or I think we can see pretty easy across the standard board that we had kind of a wide variety of acceptability. Then as quality grade went up, we see a shift of desirability going up. Now, quality grade affects juiciness and flavor. All right, juiciness and flavor, and then it does show an indication of how much tenderness we can kind of expect, because it's based off of age, and age plays a role on tenderness. But tenderness is also a function of genetics, which we can't see in the carcass too much without looking at just texture. So this just is a little screen that I like to put up so people can kind of understand why quality grade is so important, because it does affect our price. This is not going to be too terribly important, other than knowing that most young cattle are between the age of 9 and 30 months. Really, 18 to 24 months is somewhere where the cattle are being harvested, depending on their growth rate. And then color of lean is important in placing classes. If we have two classes or carcasses that are of similar quality grade, which these are not, but if they were, the carcass on the left would have a more desirable color than the carcass on the right. It's a little bit darker color. So that's just something else that goes into placing beef cuts. More youthful appearing cherry red carcasses are more desirable than darker carcasses. As animals get older, their muscle tends to be darker. As animals have stress, their muscle tends to be darker. And so we obviously try to stay away from that if possible. This is the USDA quality grading cards that we use to determine where an animal will quality grade. This is the muscle, the marbling scorecards, slight being the very least amount of marbling that we can use in a carcass and call it select. Small being the next level, that would be low choice. Modest would bring average choice. Moderate would be high choice, and then we get into the prime range. So we're talking about this marbling in the middle, the bare minimum. If a carcass doesn't have at least this much of area of marbling, it can't be considered high choice. Very subjective, I get that. They're all a little different. One thing that does come into play in grading, if you see these pieces that are attached to the outside, this is all one fleck of marbling. This kind of doesn't play into grading. This wouldn't count because it's attached. I don't want to get that. I don't get that picky with this contest because I know the students don't have that amount of knowledge. But that would come into play at collegiate level. This is the quality grading card if you were to train them on kind of how to go through their mindset. But this just shows you the marbling scores and how it relates to their final quality grade. All the beef carcasses that we use, and y'all can all write this down, are going to be considered A maturity. There's no way that I'm going to give you an online contest and you have to determine whether it's, one carcass is B and one carcass is A. They're all going to be A maturity. So we're just going to basically be looking at quality grade and then, of course, yield grade. How much actual fat is there? So I don't want y'all spending too much time on trying to determine how old the carcass is. If we see something that's super dark, a dark cutter, and I'm not going to do that in the contest as well, but I don't think I could do it where it would be very apparent. That would be something that you could discount, but this is going to be very straightforward. Like David said, we're going to keep it as simple as possible. This is an indication of yield grade. Yield grade predicts cutability. How much product is out there? As agents, y'all might want this right here, because I know y'all are getting phone calls right now about how much product can I expect, and I'm in a process of putting together a little publication, but basically this tells you a yield grade 1 steer on average will give you about 54% of the carcass weight in retail cuts. And a yield grade 5 will give you somewhere around 45%. This is boneless cuts. Boneless cuts. You can add 12% to these numbers if it's a bone-in standard tight cut. If you're cutting gravy steaks, bone-in rib eyes, leaving round bone in your roast, you can add about 12% to these numbers, and you'll be pretty close on yield. When somebody calls and says, hey, I'm killing a 1,000-pound animal, how much meat do you think I'm going to get? This is of the hot carcass weight, okay? But this just shows you how important yield grade is and why when we price in cattle off the carcass, that when you start getting into yield grade 4 and 5, they start getting $15 and $20 per hundredweight discounts, because that's a lot of money going in the barrel. Right here. Questions on that? So yield grade is basically calculated off of how much fat is on the carcass. When you're placing carcasses, when you're placing wholesale cuts, when you're placing retail cuts, I don't want you concentrating on, does that one have an inch of fat and that one's got 1.1 inches of fat. Fatter carcasses or fatter cuts are going to be higher yield grade. They're gonna yield less product. So the more external fat that you have on a cut, if you have 2 cuts next to each other and you think they're the same quality grade, they're both choice, their muscling is similar and one's fatter than the other, that means that it's got a higher yield grade or a poorer yield grade, and it's going to be placed beyond the one with a better yield grade. And that's the simplicity of teaching them that portion. Nothing simple about it, but that's as simple as I can put it. You don't need to know this right now. This is how you would determine yield grade, but basically what I want your students to know is that carcasses of the same quality grade, heavier muscle, leaner carcasses are better than fatter, lighter muscle carcasses. This is kind of some indications of how we're gonna try to display carcasses or classes. I'm gonna give you a shot of everything at once, then we'll break it down to individual pictures, and try to make this as simplistic and easy as possible for them to differentiate the better ones from the poorer ones. When we go to placing pork, cutability is important. This is what goes through my mind. I don't want things that are super, super, super lean. But every class is different. If all carcasses that I have are super, super lean, then you kind of start looking at yield and things like that, how much product is there. But basically, it's going to be a cutability. Which carcass combines trimness? You know, we want ½ an inch of fat or better, but which one combines trimness and muscling to the best, the highest degree? What we don't want in pork is pale, soft, exudative, dry, any kind of defects that would cause them to bring less money. That's going to bring them down in a placing class. So that's kind of how we'll go through the pork classes. We're going to weigh them against each other and make sure that, you know, the ones of higher quality when it comes to lack of defects and muscle structure and holding together are going to be at the top. And if they are heavier conditioned hogs that have marbling, judge marbling, but generally it's not the main thing. Questions on some of this? We still there?
Yeah, we still here.
All right. So that's pretty much what I had on that portion, that presentation. Any discussion? I think we would need to help put this contest together a little bit better. I'm open for, and if not, then we'll move on and be done.
Hey, if you haven't already, we have about 4 votes so far on the poll. If you can look in the chat, Crystal posted that there. Can you go ahead and take that? That way, like she said, we'll have like just some more definitive data to go off of as far as the written or oral.
Hey, Boo.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
may be a tech question, but will there be a way when we're looking at our retail cuts, say if a kid needs to go back and look at cut number 12, can we go back? Will they be able to go back and reference?
Absolutely. This is going to be an open deal for them. So they'll be able to go through the contest. It's a PowerPoint presentation to the best of my ability. That's what I think I'm doing right now. I don't know of any other programming that is available to the students that's going to be as easy as PowerPoint. So, right, they can go through, and then the ones that they have trouble with, they can go back to. As long as they're within that time frame, they can go back and forth and work on whatever cuts they need to. And remember that form that we were looking at, they can even change your answers. Until they submit it, they can change their answers.
Right. So if they wanted to almost do a pen and paper card like we've done in previous years and then go back at the end and fill it in electronically, as long as time permits.
I think that would be a good method. I know that some of y'all might say, well, yeah, but what if you get caught with time and then they don't fill it out and they're out of time? I don't think that's going to be an issue because the amount of time we'll probably give them. But I would probably have them writing things down. They need to have a written backup of it. Then y'all can go through it with them. You'll have, what they did in front of you. When the officials are posted, y'all can go through it with them. I think that's the important part of this, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. I'll probably maybe even put together some kind of presentation like this that is my idea or our officials' idea of why we placed what we placed, how we placed it, and y'all can go through it with your teams because that's where the learning experience is, in my opinion. So yes, they can go back and forth. Any other questions? All right.
Boo, this is Hannah. I'm trying to just think this out. So normally whenever we'd be in the cooler doing retail cut ID, we'd have so many seconds per cut because they're on such a heavy rotation, a heavy time rotation. So is their retail cut ID going to be 30 minutes?
I have not figured out how I'm doing that. My initial thought is if I can have a retail cut PowerPoint presentation and they have X amount of time to do that, and then a placing classes presentation and they have X amount of time to do that. And the only, so we can keep it on a time setting to try and dissuade them from opening up whatever, and Googling these things and figuring out what they are. I mean, there's no way to stop that. And I can't worry myself with it other than, this whole program is about, building character and self-confidence and things like that. And so that part, I don't know how to deal with. Is that kind of what you're getting at? So they don't have 2 hours and they can just sit through the internet and match pictures?
I guess I'm just trying to figure out the best way to train. So like, we normally train them
on a time.
by starting practicing with the time. So like, I make them go fast. Like if they have 30 seconds per cut, then in practice you need 25 seconds per cut because you want more time, make practice harder. I get it. I don't know how. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, do we need to focus that much on time, or, if we're going to be going, I like the idea of doing it by hand during while they're looking at the slides, because I think the split screen is going to be too much for the kids, especially like on a laptop. I think that'll just be super hard. But just trying to figure out the best way to explain it to them one time and not have to, I guess, try not to have to readjust too much so we can, we're getting close.
My advice would be to train them, like Stan was talking about, as closely to what the expectation of the real contest is. And then if they have extra time, they have extra time. Because ideally, that's what really happens in a contest anyway. With the exception of retail ID, it takes them normally 7 minutes to place classes. And they got 15 minutes because of ID. So, and ID, I always give them a minute per cut, even though it's supposed to be 45 seconds per cut, because they're having to bubble a Scantron. And so I would train them to be prepared for the future, even though we don't know what that holds. But that's going to be on y'all. I will send digital copies of the paper form. For those of you who don't have it, I'll attach that to this PowerPoint presentation where y'all can print them and have them practice doing that. Y'all can have them practice doing it online, which is super simple online. And then, whatever system y'all come up with is up to y'all. I don't believe I will be able to have a working copy of what, normally I have the Scantron forms that they filled in. So I can double check that against what the computer read. I don't know how this is going to work. I'm assuming this is going to be more accurate. I will be able to see everything that they marked in the score program. I can look at every single tick mark that they make. So I'll know exactly what they clicked on. I just won't have a printed copy of it for y'all. Does that make sense? Other questions? All right, guys. Y'all feel free to contact me with questions as you need. I'll put my contact on this PowerPoint presentation as well for those of you who don't have it. And good luck.
Thanks, Boo.
You're welcome.
Thank
you.
you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
No worries. Hopefully this helped and wasn't too crazy.
You did great. I love to see you with technology.
Oh, yeah. I know y'all got a good laugh. All right,
I did not laugh at all.
I know you didn't. All right, guys. Y'all have a great day. Robert?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. Anything else from me?
Oh, no, looks like, we had 8 people total to take the poll. And it looks like, a majority of those were leaning towards the written.
How do you feel about it? You're the guy that's going to get the brunt of all this. I think that's going to take a whole lot less bandwidth than having 50 video chats.
Yeah, and it's been addressed that, we were not gonna, we're gonna work with those students that may have had like a connection issue or something like that if they were delivering a oral presentation. So that definitely wouldn't be held against them. And just looking at it, I think the written gives the students the youth the best chance possible. of
I agree.
that information. But I do understand the stress of the agent that mentioned, them practicing, because if they do go along to nationals, that's very important that they can deliver that, appropriately.
We'll work with them on that. If they go, the ones that get to go to nationals, I plan on helping the coach it, get them prepared.
Yeah.
I got involved last year, and it was a good experience, a great experience, not a good experience. It was a great experience, and I understand the needs a little bit more now. So yeah, that won't be a problem. And they got those written reasons in front of them. They can give them every day for a month, verbally.
And if there's anyone else on the call that hasn't taken the poll yet, please go and share your opinions on what you believe will be the best delivery method.
Yeah, I'm tending to the written reasons right now. Good deal. Crystal, you still on the call? You going?
She had to hop off.
Okay, that's good. I'm gonna send her and/or you. I'll send both of y'all this presentation.
Okay.
And then y'all can distribute it to the individuals.
Got it.
I guess she can, or I don't know. You have that technology. Maybe I can. I don't know, but
you can send it to both of us, and I'll upload it and share it, and I'm pretty sure she'll get it uploaded and shared as well.
Yeah, we'll just make sure that it's somewhere, and you can even, if we got a place to put it, so they can grab it. Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
All right. Have a good day.